Hi, hello. Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm honored to be able to speak here, and I'm really happy that such an important event also gives feminist AI a room. And I see now the time is also running. That's great. I want to talk today about my work and my research, and I like to start my presentations with an AI-generated image and see what AI is actually making of such a situation. So I wrote the prompt, create an image of the Rise of AI conference 2025. And I don't feel represented as the speaker, but it might be similar to Fabian. I'm really happy that I see more diversity in this room in dress code and in hairstyles and many other forms than on this image. Why am I doing what I'm doing? What am I talking today about? So I want to take you along to my story. I shortly will tell you why I am doing this, and I want to convince you that the future of AI must, should, and will be feminist. So I will firstly be talking about why today the present of AI is not feminist, and then I will talk about how the future of AI will be feminist. So why am I doing what I'm doing? Kind of 2 years ago, I prompted this picture, powerful people at a table. And I think it sums it very well up why I'm doing what I'm doing, because AI is here representing powerful people as a group of white, privileged men. So if you look at this image a little bit more closely, even the hairstyle, the gestures, and the color coding of their suits is almost identical. And I think we know such groups of people, but actually this is not the reality, this is not the truth. So you've already introduced me. I'm doing research on the intersection of AI and power, and I'm mostly focusing on AI regulation and AI governance and how to transform AI, how to make AI more feminist. And I'm not doing this on my own. This is not possible. Last year, end of last year, we co-founded the Feminist AI community. We have expert talks there. We have community meetings. All of this is online and for free. So in case you're interested to interact more with Feminist AI, please feel free to join. So why is the present of AI not feminist? Yeah, the picture again, I think this shows it well. At my research, I'm looking at power and AI, and I just brought 2 examples where power and power structures in the society and AI correlate. So one example, and this text is in German, I'm from Bavaria, and the Bavarian parliament has only 27% women. So this is far too less. But when I asked AI to create an image of this, firstly, this is not the Bavarian parliament. Maybe some of you know it. It's like 1970s style or something in reality. But if you look a little bit at the people here displayed, I didn't find a single woman. So here, AI is even strengthening the power structures we have in our society. Another example is credit rating. Women get far less credit in our society. They have higher interest rates, they get lower credits and fewer credits, also investments. I think I've heard there's investors here too, so please fund women. They get far less credit. We also see this with AI systems. So the Apple Card was infamously famous when users noticed that some women only got 5% of the credit limit of their spouses with whom they shared credit rating, and also income. Money is important in order to do a lot of things and also to work in AI. And actually, the AI use has a lot of negative impact for marginalized people. So one example I already told you is the Apple Card. Another example is from recruiting. This is one of my my most close examples to me because I wrote my master thesis about it. Amazon created an AI for recruiting to recruit the best people based on their former recruitments, and they automatically sorted out women. And AI is, of course, also being used in healthcare, and there is a lot of chances, but also AI is, for instance, not working very well to detect skin cancer on darker skin. Then there's a lot of different biases, stereotypes in generative AI, for instance, in text generation, for instance, in being used to create recommendation letters, and if the gender is given by the first name, often biased descriptions appear. And also in image generation, and here the photo of this woman of color, she wanted to create, based on her own photos, an application photo. I also did a small study on bias in text-to-image generation systems. Okay, now I see something different. Thank you. Okay, systems. There was a football something here on my screen, and I looked at 3 contexts: at power, success, and beauty. So these are 3 exemplary photos that were generated, and here I looked at the gender representation and also at the representation of people of color. And overall, we saw that only 21% of generated people were women. It was 12% for powerful people, 20% for successful people, but almost 60% for beautiful people. And now if you look at Delhi in the context of power, it was only 6% women. If you look at Midjourney in the context of beauty, it was 92% women. And we see a similar picture if we look at people of color. Also here we saw that there were much less people of color being depicted than white people over all the prompts and all the systems. So overall, we found that there's gender bias. There were far less women created than men, and also women were often sexualized. Then there was racial bias. It was far more white people being generated than people of color, and there was also some class bias. So most people generated looked firstly very skinny and very beautiful in a way which is very classic beautiful, and they were also looking very, very prestigious. What the makeup and everything they were wearing looked very much privileged. I think all of those things were undeliberate. AI has been used there, and by coincidence and by the data that was underlying, there was discrimination and bias. But actually, AI is also being used in a way to actually manipulate and oppress. And if you look at the oppression, for instance, in Iran, there we see that AI is being used to recognize women that are not wearing hijab or not wearing it properly according to the rules. Then we see, for instance, a lot of deepfake pornography being generated, mostly targeting women. Over 90% of the victims are women. Mostly those deepfake pornography videos are being generated either as a revenge act or to blackmail women. And then, and I think we've also touched this before in this event, of course, this also has political implications. AI is being used in platforms, but also to create content which is misleading to change public opinion. In my research, or in our research, I'm looking at the intersection of power and AI, and we've created a framework. And there we look at how power, currently patriarchal, racist, and many other forms, is actually influencing the context of AI development and application. We see that this context is then also patriarchally formed, and this has an impact on the AI systems which are there. And if they are then being used, they recreate the systems, the structures which are there. I have some examples how this happens. So firstly, on the context. In the political context, we still live in a patriarchal systems, which is male-dominated. The male is the norm. We also live in a neo-colonial system where, for instance, in the realm of AI, for instance, for ChatGPT, the data has been cleaned by Kenyan workers in the global south for very low payment. They had to clean toxic data for AI systems we are using in the global north. And then we've also heard this yesterday from Fabian. We also live in a capitalist society, so very often profit first is one of the main motivations within a company, which also has influence on the AI systems. Looking at the organizational context, we see, of course, not every company has all of those attributes, but in general, we see there's a lot of power imbalance, a lot of rivalry going on, and often there's profit first meaning in the company. Then we have different aspects that are influencing AI, such as the people developing AI systems, but also the people that have influence on AI. Those could be leaders, those could be investors, those are people that spend money within a company that decide why and how are we using AI. And there we see little diversity and we see a lot of power imbalances. Looking at the data, this of course also is a problem because those AI systems are being trained on data, and we see that, for instance, we have gender gaps, we have missing data, we have missing representations, and we have stereotypes in this data. Then design can be a problem in the focus groups that we've been doing, and Marco is here also, he's a co-author with me. We have seen that often there are value and resource conflicts, meaning that, that developers told us they knew the data wasn't perfect, they would have liked to change the data to make it better, but they didn't get more time. So this profit-first mentality within the organization didn't permit them to actually work more on the data. And finally, and I think this is the most important aspect, the purpose of AI. So currently, the most systems that I am seeing, we are using and developing AI to automate existing processes and structures. And this actually means if we are recreating unequitable systems and processes, that we are of course recreating inequity and not making it more equitable. One short look into the people that work in AI, that research in AI. Here in the aspect of gender, we have a gender gap here. We have far less women working in this field than men, especially in Germany. And if you look at the AI gender gap within industries, I would say not surprisingly in non-profit, women are mostly engaging in AI work. This matters because the people, the creators behind those systems also influence the outcomes, as has been shown by a study last year that the different large language models show the political leaning of the creators behind them. But women aren't only in the creation process less active or less involved, they also use AI less. This was a big meta-analysis looking at very many different studies, and they found that there was a big gender gap in looking at generative AI. In the US and globally, women were using generative AI less than men. And this also matters because we are training those systems to an extent, and those systems should fit much better to the user that they are, but if it's mostly men, it will fit better to men also in the future. So overall, they saw that women were 20% less likely to use generative AI than men were. I also have one example of data, and I still really like this example because I like to show how strange and how biased data can be. This was an example from before I used generative AI to prompt images for my presentations. Then I searched for images on Unsplash, and here I looked for Mensch, so human, at Unsplash. So I'm sure we are seeing some diversity here. There's some diversity there. But you might have recognized that there were no women and also no children. And I don't really want to talk about why in this instance it's like that, but just to say that we have data sets that might not be as easy to see that they're biased, but we have data sets that are that have a lot of gaps. And if we train an AI now with those images, it will function better for men than for women and children. Now, what do we learn from this? We could now say, okay, we shouldn't use AI, but I think all in this room agree that we want to use AI and also that it's actually here to stay, and we cannot now decide we are all not going to use AI. So we actually have to think where to use it and how to use it in a responsible way. So now I want to tell you why the future of AI must be feminist. And I think this is because we have now a lot of systems, of AI systems, that are discriminating, that are biased in many fields. For instance, they're making false diagnosis in medicine. They are discriminating in recruiting, or they are producing biased outputs in generative AI, and many more. And I think currently, especially also in the political developments that are taking place, we cannot not act on those threats. So looking on what is happening currently in our world and which is also empowered by AI, for instance, the rise of the far right, which is also connected to the use of AI. We see a lot of manipulation and fake news often powered by AI. We see that democracy is under attack, which is also being done with AI. We see rising inequity, and there was a saying, AI makes the rich richer and the poor poorer, so we also see that AI is being involved here. We have war and conflicts also within Europe, and also here AI is being used. And finally, and I don't think we can forget this, the climate crisis is also very strongly connected to AI use, which is consuming a lot of resources. So I think all of us, we have the responsibility to think about how to use and design AI to make the world more equitable. I think this is our responsibility to use this at-scale nature of AI to actually do this and to also protect and promote our European values. So I think this is complex. It's not easy to do because we have to change the underlying system that is changing AI. And feminism can be such an approach to do this. Now, when I'm talking about feminism, I'm talking about a framework, an approach, which is not only about women. And I think this is very important to understand. This is a critical and intersectional perspective, which is not only about women. So firstly, it's critical. This means it's looking at underlying power structures, is trying to understand oppression and the reasons of oppression. And then it's intersectional, and this is very important. It's looking at the intersection of discrimination, for instance, the intersection of racism and sexism. It's not about black and white. And in that meaning, feminist AI is not just one simple technical system, it's also an approach to get there. And it's not only technical, it's also activist, it's scientific, and it's many other things to promote and to build systems that change power, and not only formal power, but also informal power in our societies. So coming back to our framework, now it would be best if we just change power, because this would have an impact on AI. I see some people smiling. I think this is not the option we should take. I mean, we should keep on doing this, but we cannot change power quickly, and currently I think we see more changes back than into feminist power. So we have to change the context of AI development and application, because this in turn will also change AI systems, make them more feminist, and this will create also feminist outcomes in AI system. And then this is a circle. This will also have an impact on the AI application that we are seeing. So how can we do this? I think firstly we have to work on the political context. Now we have, and I'm really happy about this, we have an AI regulation within Europe. I think this is an important step. And I think in this, okay, and it looks a little bit different than it was supposed to do. But I think we have to integrate within AI strategy also on a political level that we are concentrating also on equitable AI, that AI is being used to promote equity. And it should also be included in AI regulation that this is inclusivity and this is sustainability important. We need more research in the area of feminist AI, and one thing is very important here, we need more funding. And I think when giving out tax money, taxpayers' money, we should really then look at projects, look at the quality of data, they should look at intersectional perspectives, and they should also look who is actually profiting from this project and who isn't. We also have to change the organizational context, and here we are looking into how to make organizations more feminist, how to change power structures, how to make them more self-organized, and how to promote feminist leadership there. I think what we also need in organizations is certain frameworks that empower feminist AI. I think one thing every organization has to ask itself is what AI values, what AI goals are we following? Will we use AI to actually transform or to reproduce the status quo? AI values. Does the AI align with the values of our organization, or doesn't it do it? AI strategy. Will AI become essential to our value creation? And I think most companies here will say yes, and then we should also think about to implement a high-ranking person looking and being responsible for AI. And finally, and I think this is also important, even though it often sounds a little bit boring, AI governance. I think it's important to ask ourselves what guardrails will be put into place, and do we want to do the bare minimum, for instance, compliance with the AI Act, or do we want to go beyond? Looking at the different impacts on AI, so people, data, design, and purpose, we've seen that there's a problem that the people often lack diversity. And this is something we cannot change very quickly, but there's certain ways where we can still include diversity within the process. So for instance, there is this concept of including committees of diversity within processes. Those can be made up from people from all of the organization. It can have different genders, different ages, but especially also people from outside the organization, people that will be affected by those AI systems. We've seen that data is often including biases, stereotypes, and here, of course, we can clean the data, we can change the data, we can maybe use synthetic data, but one idea is also to use biased data for positive discrimination. Finally, I've been talking about the design and that there have been a lot of resource and value conflicts here. And I think one very important thing is here that we have to have an AI governance in place that is making such prioritization less difficult. So that there are certain things within those processes that just have to be done, and they just cannot be left out of the picture if we don't have much time. And then I think this is the most important thing, again, is the purpose. I think we should be using AI to think about how can we change processes and structures that are existing. How can we make those more equitable with AI? And I've been asking a couple of months ago my LinkedIn community what feminist use cases they would be wishing for. And I've brought some ideas. And I really like the first one. There was the idea there could be an AI looking at the meetings and being there within the meeting and then analyzing the speaking there, analyzing sexist behavior. And if men talk more than 50% of the time, then there would be a red traffic light going on. I think that's a really nice idea. And another idea would be, for instance, to analyze bias within the educational system with AI. For instance, I cannot remember that I've read a female author's book in my school time. I think it was mostly white German men, I think. But this is not only wishful thinking. There's actually different AI initiatives that are already going on this way. And Francelli is here. She is CEO of Bentos AI, which I really like. And there's a lot of other initiatives, organizations, NGO working on AI that are promoting feminist values. For instance, there is this project from Bavaria. They are creating an AI system that is trying to pre-diagnose heart attacks in women, because we know that doctors often don't recognize the signs within women's bodies, and then those heart attacks aren't being recognized. So this project is there to recognize those health issues. Then Fair Solution, for instance, this is a program where different organizational informations are analyzed, which is actually intersectional. They're looking at gender, at country of origin, at age and disability, and they're looking, for instance, at gender or different at equal pay and promotion scenarios and different things, and showing the organization where there's gaps. And maybe one other thing is Rory. This is an AI being used in Africa, built in Africa, for Africa, bringing math education to children, especially also to girls. So what can a feminist AI do? What can it change? So for instance, we can use it to promote feminist values following a feminist goal, so like bringing math education to girls. We can use it to make processes and structures more inclusive, like creating more simple language with AI, making it more barrier-free. We can use it to make structural bias and barriers visible, like with the AI that still has to be built. So if anyone is interested, doing the speech analysis about the sexist patterns. And then, for instance, also to make products fit big diverse population. Here I often think of health trackers. I have a watch here as well. And when they came on the market firstly, none of them was actually tracking menstruation. And this is a phenomenon which is, for a lot of people, something which is happening during their lives, and it's still a little bit surprising that this was not on the list. So if we develop, and this is what I want you to take along, if we develop and use AI in a feminist way, with a feminist approach, from today we can actually change our world at scale, because AI is being used everywhere, it's changing our world everywhere. If we do this with a feminist goal, this can really change the world. And we cannot do this alone, so let's do this together. Thank you.
Eva, no offense to anybody else who spoke before her, but I took pictures of all your slides. I mean, it's not that I didn't know it, but and I also ask myself, do I find it so interesting because I'm a woman? No, I think it's just like, in general, it's unbelievable in what kind of world we are living, and that it is so obvious in your face. Mensch. Oh, okay. Great. We have a question from Tamara. Yeah.
Microphone. Okay, I studied communication sciences, and once I had a really nice talk with my professor, and I told her, you know, I realized that why I love AI, it's because it's also communication in some way, because it's making things transparent. And so even though AI is part of the problem here, it is also part of the solution, because it made it visible, what we're tackling currently, right, in our world. So I think it's not really a question, but I just wanted to share it because you again reminded me of this thought, and I thought it might be interesting for you too.
Thank you, Tamara. Yeah, I think this image of AI as being a mirror of our society, I think is very true. I think it's not really a mirror of reality, it's a very skewed mirror, but I think it is a mirror, yeah.
Helga.
For me, the purpose of the feminist is caring. Caring and sharing, and this is different compared with competing. So I think the transformation is in a caring society. And that's what Tanja Singer, a very famous psychologist on Max Planck Institute, what she says. We need a caring society because only caring is sustainable.
And I think it's something which is missing in the AI age, yeah.
Please reach them.
In the whole tech world, yeah.
I have another question, and thanks for your great presentation. So when we think about this all autonomous cars and stuff like that, that overproportionally kill women on the streets in Silicon Valley and stuff like that, do you think, what is your stance on why are companies shying away of changing it? Do you think they are scared of having themselves considered feminist, because it's still a term that people are really like, oh my God, I'm not a feminist, right? So what do you think, why is it that nothing's happening on big scale?
So I think things are happening, but I think they often just don't have to. And I think this is why regulation is really important. I think a lot of people say, oh, it's difficult for companies, and it probably is. But I think we've seen that it's not working without regulation. So I'm really happy that we have regulation in the EU. I think the term feminism, yeah, of course, this is a very difficult word, especially for a lot of men, but also for women. But I think for me it's still the very right term, because I think it talks about caring, it talks about equity, and I think it's just the right term. But I think some people, even if it wouldn't be called feminist, I wouldn't convince if they don't mind killing women or maybe having those biased decisions, they wouldn't care either. But I think we've seen also good instances. For instance, last year, Gemini had a big, was big in the news about they have changed their AI systems to very much show more diversity on the pictures, and I think this was really good. But then there were people prompting. People from German Wehrmacht, so soldiers from the Second World War, and those then were marginalized people. They were black people, they were indigenous people, women, Asian people, and of course this was a little bit of a problem, and they had a lot of image problems then. But I think, like, seeing this, it was also good to see they thought, okay, we have to change if we want to promote diversity. So I think we are seeing things, but it's slow, and I think in the current environment in the US, it's worse.
Can I have, from the tech team, the last slide back where we saw the 4 pillars?
I think
or maybe
I can
you can do that. The 4 pillars with the, I think it was about actionable things to do. Because I had earlier a question like, what could you tell AI developers and organizations what to do, like now, implement, be more inclusive? Is there anything you would like to add to that? If I'm a developer now, what should I do?
I think developers aren't also the people that really have the power in the system. So I think they can definitely question this. They should also be aware. They should educate and learn something about gender bias or other forms of biases. But I think they are not the people really deciding upon AI systems. So they may be
the ones who are deciding?
I think these are people in power. These are people that are making decisions, and I think they have responsibility, and they should really also take this responsibility. And I think often they are not very much aware that their decisions also impact AI very much. So, like, just imagine the question: where are we using AI and why? This is a really big question, which is having such a big impact on AI systems, but it's not technical at all. And I think a lot of people in decision power don't realize this. And I think just thinking about this is like the most important thing I would want them to do.
Thank you. I would leave that as your last words that are perfect. Thank you so much, Eva
Thank you very
Gengler.
much.